Well, good evening. I call the regular meeting of the Ames Area Metropolitan Planning Organization Transportation Policy Committee meeting to order. Welcome, Supervisor. Thank you for coming. And we do have a quorum, so we're going to proceed with item number 1. Kyle, do you want to make any highlight anything on this?
You want me? Okay.
Or John?
Yeah, so this is the first item here is for the distribution formula that the Iowa DOT uses to distribute planning funds to the Iowa MPOs. And every census, they do a joint review with all the MPOs. And if any MPO has a suggested alternative formula they want to use, they'll bring that forward, and then the MPOs will kind of take a vote on if they would like to keep the existing formula or switch to whatever the new proposed formula was. With this census, there was a new proposal for a different formula for the federal highway planning funds. And the new proposal, with the current formula, it's based off of strictly your current urban area population from the census. With the new formula, you would have a base amount which would be equal to your previous fiscal year's allocation, and then any increase that the state receives in funding would then be allocated amongst the MPOs based off of the population change from the previous census. And the reason for that new proposal, or the backing behind it, is it would protect MPOs if they have a rapid decline in population or a rapid population change. It would kind of spread out the change in funding rather than having an abrupt change in funding in like a single fiscal year because of a census update. And with this new proposed methodology, our MPO would receive about an increase in $2,000 in planning funds next fiscal year. So yeah, that's all I had.
Thank you. Any questions for Kyle?
Are there any downsides to this?
Not really. And really the impacts on funding are pretty minor for most of the MPOs. It seems to me that the proposal is good for protecting from that rapid population change. I don't see any downsides with it. And all of the MPOs kind of took an informal poll amongst the staff, and they all were in support of the proposed formula. So it seems like it's a pretty well-rounded and well-received proposal alternative from the current methodology.
So the most obvious thing is that it protects MPOs that are losing population from losing the funding, but it also protects other MPOs if another MPO in particular might grow very rapidly, like Kyle said. Under the current formula, they would then take over a large share of that funding, but this would kind of cap that and then keep the distribution more equal.
Okay. Is there a motion relative to this item?
Move alternative 1 to support the proposed Iowa distribution formula for MPO transportation PL funds.
Second.
Okay, moving second. Any discussion?
I don't think I can second this.
That's right.
Yeah.
Second.
Thank Thank you. All right. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Motion carried. All right, move on to item number 2, hearing on final FY 2024-2027 Transportation Improvement Program.
So we didn't have any major changes from the draft version that you saw back in the May meeting. We just received one minor comment from Iowa DOT, and we didn't receive any public comments. So there's not really anything new to add for the final version.
Any questions for Kyle? All right, I'll declare the public hearing on the final FY 2024-2027 Transportation Improvement Program to be open. Is there anyone who wants to address the Transportation Policy Committee committee on this item? Seeing and hearing none, declare the public hearing to be closed. Is there any final comments or questions? Entertain a motion on resolution approving the FY 2024-2027 Transportation Improvement Program.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Motion carried. And I've asked John to share some exciting news.
Sure. Next week, we'll have another MPO meeting where we'll go over the corridor studies for both the 190th Street corridor as well as the South Duff corridor study in the Highway 30 area.
I just heard about this late afternoon, and so I want to make sure that you were aware of it, and Mayor Pop and others, but it's going to include that whole area that you've been very interested in. And apparently it's the only time in the near future that the consultant can actually come in person and make a presentation. Is that correct?
Right. Both consulting teams will be here to present those studies.
So that's why it's very short notice, and I'll make sure that the word will get out to all the.
Kyle and I chatted yesterday, so I've not talked to Mayor Pop. Have you let him know?
We haven't sent anything out yet to my knowledge, but we'll make sure he's informed.
Yep. So next Tuesday, 6 o'clock.
Yeah, I'm sure that Bill may be interested, but maybe not able to make it. But I know that Mayor Pop and Supervisor Merkin would like to be here for sure. Yeah. Okay. All right. Any policy committee comments? Ames City Council? Supervisor? All right. Entertain motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming back.
See you next week.
Yeah. we did.
All right. I call the regular city council meeting for July 11th, 2023 to order. Good evening. And council, we are working from a amended agenda. There's one item that has been added. It's item between number 6 and 7. Motion setting July 27th, 2023 as an additional regular city council meeting beginning at 6 p.m. It's under consent, which we'll take up in a short while after we have a proclamation and a exciting presentation. So we'll start with the proclamation. Keith? I'm sorry, Keith and Courtney. Sorry, right? Parks and Recreation Month. Whereas Parks and Recreation is an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Ames, and whereas Parks and Recreation promotes health and wellness, improving the physical and mental health of people who live near parks, and whereas Parks and Recreation promotes time spent in nature, which positively impacts mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being. And whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for sports, hiking trails, swimming pools, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyle. And whereas Parks and Recreation programming and education activities are critical to childhood development. And whereas Parks and Recreation increases the community's economic prosperity through increased property values, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas Parks and Recreation is fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month. And whereas Ames recognizes the benefits derived from Parks and Recreation resources, therefore I, John A. Hala, Mayor of the City of Ames, Iowa, do hereby proclaim the month of July 2023 as Park and Recreation Month. I invite Keith and or Courtney to share a few things.
So thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Council, for your continued support of Parks and Recreation. I'm going to have Courtney kind of go through just what this month's or this year's theme is. It's called Where Community Grows. And sometimes we don't spend enough time letting everybody know how well we do in Ames and the support that we have as it relates to Parks and Recreation. So the National Park and Recreation Association, what they do is they do an agency performance review every year. And this is across the country for all of their members. So just a few things that to share with you. So a national average, residents per park are just about 2,300 residents per park. In Ames, we have 1,600 residents per park. So we do very well. Residents per playground, national average, almost 3,800 residents per playground. In Ames, 1,800. So we do very well. Acres of parkland per 1,000 residents. National average, 10.8. In Ames, we're at 19.2. So almost double of what the national average is. So all good things. And then when we look at operating expenditures per capita, the national average is $94, almost $95 spent per capita. In Ames, we do it for less than $80. So we do better in a lot of areas and we do it for less money. So just wanted to share some of that information, with everybody. Again, we really support the city manager, city council, Parks and Recreation Commission, and obviously all the support that we get from the residents. So I'm going to have Courtney just talk a little bit about some of the things that we have going on this month for Parks and Recreation Month.
Thank you, Keith. And as Keith mentioned, the theme this year for this month to celebrate Parks and Recreation Month is Where Community Grows. And that's really celebrating the vital role Parks and Recreation professionals play in bringing people together, providing essential services, and fostering the growth of our communities. And so what staff has done for this month is we have put together a calendar throughout the month of July. So there's one or two activities just focused in on every day that somebody can go out and do in our local parks or at one of our facilities to really engage and take advantage of what we have here in Ames to celebrate Parks and Recreation Month. And as well, we have a park challenge that we have put out as well to try to encourage everybody to try to go and experience all 38 of our parks this month. So there is the calendar and the Parks and Recreation Challenge checklist that you can view on amesparkrec.org, or you can pick it up here at the community center downstairs. And you can follow us on social media, Ames Parks and Recreation, all throughout the month as we do fun activities. Some of the things that are expressed on the calendar, to free fitness classes, to golfing at Homewood, to free drop-in class or free drop-in activities that we're actually hosting at one park each week. So last week we went out to O'Neill Park and had a fun drop-in kickball and had great participation, even though it was a gloomy, rainy day. Had a bunch of kids in the neighborhood come out, and we'll actually be out at Franklin Park on Friday for a Hoopa Palooza contest. So really encouraging everybody to just partake. If you need an excuse to go out and visit all the great things that we have here in Ames, make it this month to do so. Thank you.
right. Well, this is, I think, a very exciting report. Cindy, I'll let you introduce yourself, your role, and Eric. But we'll start by saying that there were 10 of us, including Rachel, that went to Japan a few weeks ago to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the sister city relationship between Koshu, Japan, and the city of Ames. And I think, Cindy, did you hand make that little thing, or?
One stitch at a time.
Well, I think anyway, we have a few things to present, and I think just an exciting report, as well as some exciting things coming up in the future. So we're thrilled to share it with the council and also with the community to hear about what's going on and what the future holds. So Cindy, I'll turn it over to you.
So I am Cindy Hicks. I am the current board president of the Ames International Partner Cities Association. I reside at 2427 Tullamore Lane, Ames, Iowa. So this year, as the mayor said, marks the 30-year anniversary of our sister city relationship with Koshu, Japan. In 1993, Ames signed an agreement with Koshu to embark on a friendship that would be based on cultural exchanges and educational exchanges. Since that time, hundreds of Ames residents and Ames middle school students have made the journey to Koshu and have in return hosted Koshu residents and Koshu middle school students in their homes. This connection has created opportunity for our citizens, our children, and our city officials to experience and explore other cultures. But this type of person-to-person diplomacy is especially beneficial for our kids. It teaches them to respect and celebrate the differences in all people. Learning about different cultural aspects offers new experiences for our kids. And it also helps them to realize that we're all humans, despite differences in how we look, dress, or what we eat or celebrate. But aside from a better understanding and awareness of other people's beliefs and practices, learning about different cultures can also help us better understand and appreciate our own. After all, our culture is an essential piece of our identity. This is the opportunity that the city of Ames has provided for hundreds of our middle school students over the past 30 years. In June, a delegation of 10 people traveled to Koshu to reconnect post-COVID and celebrate this 30-year milestone. The delegation consisted of Mayor Hala, Eric Schmidt from the Chamber of Commerce, City Council member Rachel Junk, Board Vice President, AIPCA Board Vice President Marina Crava, AIPCA Board Secretary Callie Sandal, one of our board members, Dr. Valerie Stahlbaumer, citizens Dyke Hicks, Olivia Gallion, and Dan Gill, and then of course myself. It was the perfect delegation for this trip, as every single delegate added value, asked questions, and looked for new opportunities for the city of Ames. And man, did we discover new opportunities. This was very timely because on this trip, we felt it was also time to take a look at the relationship and determine if it was worth maintaining. Well, the answer to that question was a resounding yes on both sides. We discovered a desire to broaden the goals of our connection. And with details on that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric.
Thanks, Cindy. Thanks, City Council, for the opportunity to talk about this really incredible trip. It's not lost on me. I actually had to pinch myself a couple times while I was on the other side of the world that, this type of relationship is fostered through the city of Ames and has been maintained over the past 30 years. And Cindy pointed to a couple of those reasons, but the fact that, we have middle school students and we have, people from our community that are able to go to Japan and experience a different culture is really incredible. And that's a result of the fact that this relationship has been fostered over the past 30 years, and now we'll continue to be able to do that. So as we prepared for the trip, Cindy, myself, the mayor, we talked about this was kind of on pause from what I gathered for the past couple of years, as was everything due to the pandemic and COVID. And so this is really an opportunity where we had to ask ourselves, what is this relationship about? How do we continue it moving forward? And we actually pressed pretty hard on the delegation over there to also ask themselves that same question. And so as we continue to have meetings and of course for us, who are the tourists and the visitors over there, we got to experience some of the cultural aspects of Japan. We also had some really great conversations with their leaders over there, not only with the city council, but we met with what was their chamber of commerce as well. And it was through those conversations that what I believe really heightened the trip. And so I think that having had those conversations, their perspective on this relationship also shifted while we were over there, so much so that the delegation that is now coming to Ames and visiting, our country and our community in the fall is much more robust than what it was, I would say, a month ago or even a couple weeks ago. Really, that shifted. And so, some exciting things will take place. We got to talk to them about their business and industry while over there. And our goal is that is going to continue when they come here. Because, really, this was part one of what is a two-part trip. We experienced their culture, but now they're going to do the same with their mayor coming here, their superintendent of education visiting our community. And so that's really exciting. Cindy also mentioned the middle school. That relationship is already underway and continuing on how we can have some middle school students experience Japanese culture, initially virtually, with the plan of that continuing in person as well. And then one of the tasks that I am taking on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, but ultimately our community as well, one of the goals of the Ames International Partner Cities Association is to raise awareness across our community about this partnership and this relationship. And so I'm dedicating a spread and a story in the Ames Chamber of Commerce Traction magazine to sharing this story, just so that the rest of our community, although maybe not in person, but they can be aware and be able to experience and understand that this relationship does exist. And so the quick plug for that publication is, we print 20,000 of those of that magazine on a quarterly basis. And so based on the feedback we received, we know that people engage with it. And so I think this is certainly a story that is worthy within that publication. So I'm excited for our community to be able to learn more from that.
Rachel, you want to offer any observations? It was a pleasure having you along with, and you and Olivia sure contributed a lot from your perspectives.
Yeah, I think the trip was an incredible experience to meet people and get to see what their city in Koshu is like, what the city government is like, city council, chamber of commerce. These things might all be different from here, but there's different learnings and takeaways that we can bring back to make Ames government better and to make our city better as well. The hospitality, the welcoming that we experienced from Koshu was it blew my mind. It was an amazing trip, and I'm so excited to have people from Koshu here in October and be able to show them that same hospitality and keep strengthening and growing our relationship for hopefully another 30 years.
Yeah, just to build on what's been said is that my understanding is initially they're going to send 4 people over, and now has grown to 10 people. And it just shows that they really have embraced and are excited about strengthening the relationship. And I think that we had a little bit of question in our back of our mind: is this really going to continue? And we met with the mayor and his staff and had a very, of course, you have to do translation. It takes a little while to kind of go through that process, but had great translators. I think we did. I understood the English, but I think that there was a gradual warming and growth, and to the point where it was almost hard to say goodbye on the end of the beginning of the morning of the 4th day. But we also want to, as you mentioned, Cindy and Eric, is we want to bring this home to the residents of Ames, not just having a few people experience it. And so we're hopeful that one of the people coming over is he actually has started a company that manufactures room fresheners, fragrances, and the like. And we're talking to them about, is there a way that we can somehow market those in Ames, Iowa? And then he came up with the idea, well, can we kind of combine some things from Iowa and with what he's doing? Because he's using regional, local products to make that, and actually create like a sister city type of a fragrance, for example. And then there's a gal that works with herbal teas. And so we were thinking, man, there's lots of things. And so my mind's already spinning. What can we do to show, in return? And also, I didn't realize it, but this is the Napa Valley of Japan. There's 40 wineries everywhere you go. There's grapevines in people's front yards, side yards, next to cemeteries, along the streets, you name it. And so without spilling all the beans, we're kind of trying to noodle on what are some things we can do to further the relationships. So people can walk into a store or hear about Koshu City. It's like, oh yeah, the mayor and a few other people went on a vacation for 3 or 4 days. That was not our we did enjoy it. It was very, very enriching from a cultural standpoint, but we were on a mission to really see what we can do to really help strengthen the relationship. And so I appreciate Cindy's leadership. I have to say, honestly, full disclosure, I was a little skeptical. I was really skeptical going over, but it really, I'm thrilled that they're coming, and we're going to make it a high priority. It's October 16th and 17th, Monday and Tuesday. And I'm pleased they're coming in October, because October is a very, very busy month for them. That's harvest season for them. There's lots of festivals, lots of events. And so they're squeezing it in. They're flying on a Sunday, and then they take off on a Wednesday morning. So I'm sure we'll announce what some of the things are going on, but I think there's going to be some cool things that we're going to do and showcase. So, and they made a big deal, a really big deal of this being the 30th anniversary. I'll turn it over to you, Cindy, to maybe give a little history or talk about what you got there. And I got something also to show and present.
So while we were there, they presented us with a couple of gifts for the city of Ames. And so this right here is what is called a Teru Bozu, Japanese hanging dolls. It's a tradition that started in the Edo period. Japanese farmers would hang the dolls outside of their windows by the string to ensure good weather. Traditionally, if the weather does not turn out well, a good helping of holy sake is poured over them and they're thrown in the river. But we're not going to do that. In modern times, Japanese children make the dolls out of cotton and string and hang them out the window if they are wishing for sunny weather. Often maybe a school picnic date. If you hang the dolls upside down, it acts as a prayer for rain. So I saw this gift as a symbolic well wish for good weather for the city of Ames, which seems appropriate from one ag community to another ag community.
Yeah. And we were presented this plaque from Koshu City that says 30th anniversary of partner city relationship, with both of the city logo and their city logos. And so I'll put that in the display case. And coincidentally, Cindy picked a gorgeous clock, which blew the mayor away. And then he was just absolutely ecstatic. And the finish and the color was identical to this, unbeknownst to all of us. So it's just kind of telling that both on the same page. So with that, do you have any other thing you want to share, or give me an idea what's going on in October?
So to close, I will just tell you a little bit of what you can expect in the coming year with our relationship with Koshu. During COVID, we were able to connect our middle school kids virtually. And so they did some exchanges online, and then they also exchanged New Year's Eve cards. There is a wish by Koshu to do that again, because more children could be involved than just the few that can go on a delegation. There actually were hundreds of cards exchanged. So it was very fun. And so in the fall, we're going to do another virtual exchange. October 16th and 17th, a delegation of 10 people and 2 interpreters, including government officials, the superintendent of education, the Chamber of Commerce board, and staff members will come here, and we'll continue our talks on how we can benefit each other economically as well as culturally and educational. And then next summer, we will once again be able to send a delegation of middle school students to Koshu. And then in the fall, we will accept a delegation of middle school students from Koshu. Do you have any questions?
Eric, any closing comments?
Cindy covered it.
I will say Eric did a phenomenal job of taking pictures and getting those posted. So I imagine you can go to his Facebook page, I guess, and follow some of the threads as well too, and some of the information. think we all have like a gazillion pictures, I think. So we weren't going to go through all those tonight with you, but anyway. And Valerie just walked in. She was one of our, she came with as well too. So, all right.
I will also say, like our Facebook page, Ames International Partner Cities Association. And if you want to be involved, we will be looking for volunteers for October 16th and 17th to make the visit from Koshu as spectacular as they made our visit.
All right. Thanks, Cindy and Eric. Appreciate you guys coming. Pardon me? Yeah, I think Susan doesn't know this yet, but we're going to ask her to do a refresh on the Koshu City display cabinet, which will include that as well as this, because we want them when they come in October to see all that. And we've also asked our media production to make this clip into something to put on our YouTube channel so we can share it with our friends in Koshu City and let them know how important it was to us, and reporting it back to council. And council appreciate your support in this and into the community. I think if you have an opportunity in the future to go, I think we're going to try and refresh it and do at least every other year, if not every year. Not sure yet. That's up to them to decide. But anyway, thanks for coming. Appreciate it. All right, we'll move on to consent agenda with the one additional item on our amended agenda. Is there any item that council wishes to pull tonight? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve consent.
So moved.
What's that? Where would I be without you? Sorry. Thank you.
Do we have to start over again tonight?
Yes, I think let's start all over again. How's that sound? All right. Staff's requested item 7 get pulled. So entertain a motion to approve consent less item number 7.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 All right. We're going to move on to public forum. This is a chance we give people to address city council on items of city business. Ask people to limit their comments to 3 to 4 minutes if they would. And I know that one of the people we'll be inviting to come up and speak is on the proposed property maintenance ordinance. This will be underneath public forum because there's no item on the agenda this evening for the ordinance, but you are invited. You can sort of make some comments. And anyone else who may be here relative to that ordinance, the public hearing will be opened next Tuesday night and be part of the regular city council meeting, which is 1 week earlier because of some kind of event called Ragbri coming to town. So anyway, so with that, and also Ken, you're here on stop sign at Woodland. And also we'll have you do it in public forum because you cannot address council during disposition communication to council. So I'll give you a chance to talk. So we'll start with Rick. If you might come up and introduce yourself and make your comments, and then we'll go to Mr. Platt.
Thank you. Rick Exner, 1014 Murray Drive. I'd like to speak about the soon-to-be approved change in required clearance above sidewalks. Unfortunately, I missed the city press release about a meeting to discuss the code change, nor did I hear about it through a neighborhood association. In fact, I don't live in the neighborhood that I will mention here. I take walks. Several times a week in all seasons, I pass by the corner of Northwestern Avenue and 24th Street, where there is a very charming bower of small trees arching over the sidewalk. On hot days, this little arbor provides a cool moment. In the first snowstorm, it is a magical haven for both pedestrians and birds. The lowest branches of this arbor are about 8 feet off the ground. The property owner told me that every year the city gets one complaint about the property. Fortunately, thus far, she has been able to work with the city forester to stave off removal of the vegetation. Now city staff are recommending one size fits all leeway to raise the height requirement to 10 feet over the sidewalk, which would mean the end of this charming little spot and probably others. Resident input was against it, according to the city report. Is the city really going to run a 10-foot tall snowplow down the sidewalk? If it might do that somewhere at some time in the future, does it need to remove sidewalk vegetation everywhere as a precaution? Arguably, Ames has too little vegetative cover as it is. I always find it interesting on my walks to see the creative ways that residents use greenery to add interest to their neighborhood. The ordinance that the council is about to pass will be a limitation that leaves our neighborhoods a little less interesting and pleasant. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Ken?
But what I'd like to address is the.
Sorry, would you just introduce yourself, please, Ken?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm Ken Platt. I live at 3620 Woodland Street here in Ames.
Thank you.
And what I'd like to discuss is the removal, this past 2 weeks, I guess, of the stop signs at the intersection of Woodland Street and Westwood Street intersection. And I and I believe when these signs were removed, this created a significant safety hazard for the children in our neighborhood. Now, prior to the removal of the stop signs on Woodland Street, children were able to cross the street in relative safety to get to the park, Lob Park, across the street. And now with the signs removed, they can obviously cross the street, but not without some degree of hazard. Let me show you this drawing that I'm quite proud of. I live here on the corner of Westwood and Woodland Street. And this is the Hira Park, Lob Hira Park. And this is the site of the old Edwards School. And there's a little indentation here where the buses used to come and pick up students, but now it's used every once in a while. Ames police will position a squad car at this location to monitor traffic coming up and going down the street. Just as a little aside, when the police car is present, everybody magically slows down to the 25 limit and they all stop and then they proceed. This is when we had the stop signs on Woodland Street and also Westwood Street. But the police department cannot obviously be there all the time. Children reach this park by coming down Woodland Street. They stop here, they cross Westwood, and now they're in the park. And so when there were stop signs here, any traffic coming from either direction had to stop. So we had a degree of safety. After they stopped, they would then turn. And usually this turn is done, responsibly. Now, with these signs no longer here, when cars turn, they turn fast. And in fact, if you were to calculate the average speed of these vehicles moving up and down West Street, you would find a significant number going quite fast and also turning this corner quite fast. This is an accident waiting to happen. So I'm hoping that the council will review the removal of these stop signs, and hopefully they'll be returned. These signs, incidentally, as a matter of history, were present at this location for at least 50 years. They were there when I moved to Ames in the early 70s, and they were there because they provided a degree of safety for the children that were attending Edwards Elementary School. Well, now the school's gone, but we have the park there instead. So children are still moving to and from this area where the park is. So I would urge the council to take a close look at this, and hopefully you'll decide, you know what, it might be a slight inconvenience for some people who have to maybe stop. But really, I think the important thing is safety. We need to protect our children. And when kids are standing on the corner, I can see them looking up, to the left, right, and straight ahead. But I don't see very many of them turning around to see if anything is coming up behind them. And these cars travel rather rapidly. Another aside, I would say, is that when the Ames police car is parked there, I've never seen anybody speed. So if the city is going to evaluate based on reports of police activity or surveillance of traffic, keep in mind that the police cars are always prominently visible, whether you're coming from either direction. And it wouldn't surprise me if they say, we haven't seen very many, if any, people speeding during our time at that location. So I think it's important. But anyhow, I hope you'll take it into consideration to have those stop signs replaced. So thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
The whiteboard was a nice touch.
Yeah, very helpful.
Yeah, would you like to keep this and hang it in the, you can.
Should pass it to the next person.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
appreciate that.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, we'll close public forum and we'll move on to item number 18, request from Main Street for Ragbri on Main, Tuesday, July 25th. Yeah. Staff coming?
Nope. Do you have any questions?
Any questions?
I think Greg, right, the people here, if they have any questions, right? Pretty straightforward, but they'll be, any questions for them? We're recommending all the requests.
All right, open up public comment. Anyone want to address council on these items? Seeing none, we'll close public input. We'll take these one at a time. Entertain motion approving blanket temporary obstruction permit for closed area.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Entertain motion approving the 5-day July 25th to 29th Class C liquor retail alcohol license with outdoor service from Ames Main Street for closed area.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Motion carried. Entertain motion on resolution approving closure of Main Street from just east of the Wells Fargo drive-through entrance to the east entrance of the CBD lot on the 100 block, Burnett Avenue from Main Street to the US Bank drive-through entrance, Kellogg Avenue from the CBD lot to Main north to 5th, Douglas Avenue between Main Street and 5th, and Tom Evans Plaza.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Entertain motion on resolution approving closure of 147 meter parking spaces, suspension of parking regulations, and waiver of fees within closed area from 6 a.m. Tuesday, July 25th until 9 a.m. Wednesday, July 26th.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 And entertain a motion on resolution approving usage and waiver of electrical fees for the event.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Entertain motion on resolution approving waiver of enforcement of section 17.16 of municipal code related to minors prohibited on certain premises with respect only to proposed downtown entertainment area for the event.
Move approval.
Second.
Second. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you. And entertain motion on resolution approving waiver of enforcement of section 1717 of municipal code related to alcohol consumption in parks with respect only to Tom Evans Plaza for the event.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Very good. We will move on to item number 19, hearing on proposal to enter into a sewer revenue loan disbursement agreement to borrow money thereunder in a principal amount not to exceed $2,150,000. Any questions for staff on this one? Seeing and hearing none, declare the public hearing on this item to be open. Is there anyone who wants to address council on this item? Seeing and hearing none, entertain a motion on resolution instituting proceeding to take additional action for the authorization of loan and disbursement agreement and the issuance of not to exceed $2.15 million sewer revenue bonds SRF loan.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 And entertain a motion on resolution approving final plans, specifications, and awarding the contract to Jet Drain Services LLC in the amount of $1,353,819.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you. And entertain a motion on resolution approving the contract and bond with Jet Drain Services LLC.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 All right, moving on to item number 20, hearing on proposal to vacate existing 15 feet public utility easement located between lots number 2 and number 3, North Dayton Industrial Subdivision, First Edition, Ames, Iowa. Any questions for staff? Declare the public hearing on this item to be open. Is there anyone who wants to address council on the vacation of this public utility easement? Seeing none, declare the public hearing to be closed. Entertain motion on resolution approving vacating public utility easement.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 All right. Item number 21, rezoning of 314 Bourne Avenue from General Industrial to Government Airport District SGA. Any questions for staff on this item? Hearing none, declare the public hearing on this item to be open. Is there anyone who wants to address council on this topic? All right. Please come up and introduce yourself, and you may begin.
Good evening, Rod Mum, 5620 McFarland Avenue. I own the property south of the proposed rezoning there at 525 East 2nd Street. And I understand the rezoning then will result in an addition of, the intent is to add a third building on that property. And I'd like to address the water runoff there flowing south onto our property. Yeah, there we go. So flowing, I'm on the south side, if I may. This property here, through there. Just the water runoff coming there. And so if we do have additional surface area from a roof perspective, we've got some water retention, additional water runoff issues there. But it's not only flowing south, but also to the east there. The second topic there would be is along Bourne Avenue and also along East 2nd Street there are no storm sewers. So we have a storm sewer in the corner of Bourne and East. And so we do have, during storms, there quite a bit of water that's moving down towards Duff or east on East 2nd Street, which then goes further down that property there. That's also creating some erosion issues along the corners there.
Excuse me, are you saying that the only stormwater intake is in the northeast corner of the intersection there? Thank you.
I'm not sure if there's storm sewers. I'm not sure if there's storm sewers down under the road there, but there's no intakes to allow that to properly get taken care of there. So, related to Bourne Avenue, I know it doesn't address the rezoning there, but I would ask the council to consider the pollution and the litter that's coming from off of the resource center. So if you go along Bourne Avenue today, and every time I mow, I'm spending 30 minutes cleaning up trash, the waste, the litter, all the plastic that's floating around there. And so if you go along Bourne Avenue today, tremendous amount of trash sitting along there.
Hmm.
If you look inside the sewers, when I bought that property, I had the city come in, they vacuumed out that one storm sewer, and tremendous amount of trash was pulled out of that storm sewer. So we know where that's ending up there. So somehow address, contain the litter at the resource center, whether, and I've talked with the gentleman there and they've tried to do some pickup there, but how do you contain it? Tarps over the containers or things like that to help prevent that litter flowing and getting around the other properties there. So that's what I had. So thank you.
Sir, can I ask a
Yeah,
question?
go ahead.
Sir, could you again clarify the boundaries of your property? I didn't quite understand that.
It would be this one.
So, from where to where?
Does it exclude the northwest corner?
Where you see my cursor, that property is not his. The rest of that is all his property.
I didn't catch that. Okay.
Thank you.
Have you had conversations with the owner about the surface water flowage?
We are
We
the
are the owner.
I am the owner.
No, we are the owner. So this
We're
is
the
a
other.
city Ames Electric controlled property. We own the property that he's talking about to the north. So Ames Electric initiated this rezoning
Oh, yes,
to
yes,
the benefit of the city.
So let me ask the question differently. Have you had conversations with us specifically? Can we cut that part from the video? Sir? That'd be great.
Just I'm not surprised by adding the building there over the years. The utility guys, the electricians in the back there, the trucks, and we visited and stuff. And he always wanted a building back there, so this doesn't surprise me. I think it's a good use of the property there. He wanted to, bring in extra rock to flow the water away there. So, in most of the water, I think, is coming. If you go to the property today, I've actually bermed up a little bit on my side to kind of keep it over. But if it flows down to this, I think most of it's flowing out this bottom corner here because that building on the east side of the property that goes north-south there is probably moving it towards the southeast corner there. So.
And Steve, is there any timing issues here that we would need to make a decision on this? This is really outside of our scope of being able to thoughtfully, none of us are engineers.
Can you speak to that when the site plan as
They'll
far as
figure it out.
stormwater?
Yeah, I think the action you're doing tonight is the zoning for it. So if the site plan would still have to comply with our development regulations. So the comments that we're hearing tonight would be relayed to Ames Electric as part of the site plan process to look at how the storm water would flow off of the structure if they placed it there. So it's impervious area now, effectively. I think it's about a 6,000 square foot building that Ames Electric is considering for the site. So then we would have to work through that in site plan review about how that drainage is directed off of the site.
Sir, how long have you owned your property?
6 years.
And in that time, have you had some significant water flowing on to your property?
No, I mean, it gets wet. Back there, it's all grass. And so I don't have any purpose today. But I do have potential future plans to put a building back there along that fence line. So which would be the south fence line there, that red line. So addressing that for the future potential that for runoff there.
Okay, thank you.
Do you know the trash that's blowing? Do you know, is it blowing out? Is it blowing out of the plant, or is it actually uncovered containers? Or do you, if you don't know, that's fine.
It's both. So out of the containers, the 20-foot containers that are hauled away by truck by Waste Management, but also out of that, what I'd call the southeast corner of the door. There's a big door there where there's still a lot of trash.
On the northeast, on the northeast corner of the resource recovery plant?
I'm sorry, southeast corner along Lincoln Way there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's coming out there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. Thank you for coming and giving your feedback. Please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have to apologize. I missed the zoning meeting for this project. My name is Ralph Goebel. I own the property in the corner there where the white roof is and the black line is around. I also own the property on the east side of this of Rod's,
East-
where the other
east,
white
yeah.
building roof is. And I totally agree with him on the trash issue because it all ends up in my place on the east side. Any drive down there, you can see plastic bags, cups, anything. I don't know exactly where it's coming from, but it's not coming from what I generate. So the other thing that I strongly agree with is the water runoff problem is tremendous on my lot on the east side. I have a road, the road that goes down right here is being eroded away because I have the privilege of receiving all the water from the high top of Second Avenue there.
Sir, if you can move back to the microphone, just so we can record this. Yep.
I have the privilege of receiving all the water from East Second and a little bit of water from Rod's property that we have addressed together. But it's a tremendous flow when it's raining. So I have a real problem with that. I also have back where the two trucks are in the middle, if you can see what I'm saying, we have an overflow there. I also get it from the corner of the city's property, underneath that building they have on that property, and on the north side of that property. But the city owns the property north of me, so that's not so much of a problem. But that's a fairly big slope there and it's starting to be eroded away. Now, I don't know whether I'm responsible for that or not. I don't believe that I am. So that needs to be addressed on this problem. In the zoning requirements, they have a quote in the zoning thing that says, the city uses are general industrial in nature. I don't see the point of the rezoning at all. If the city zoning agrees with the point of general industrial use, why is it being rezoned? I'm concerned with whenever we develop something, we are required to do certain things. The entrance to the city property off of Bourne is gravel. That needs to be paved. We would be required to pave that if we were doing this rezoning. Again, I apologize because I didn't make the zoning meeting, so I don't know where they're going to position the building on this lot. Are they going to tear down this other building? If they tear down this other building on the east side of that lot, then I'm kind of really in danger of having that whole slope give way and crashing into my other building on East Second there. So there's quite a few concerns about water runoff, trash, land damage, whatever you want to call that. The other thing I'm concerned with, I know the city has plans to turn the old coal yard into a park. I'm not sure whether you guys are the city is trying to chase us out of this area or what, but.
There are no plans at this point to do anything with the coal yard.
Well, that's just the rumor that I heard. So.
Well, there is a secret meeting secret meetings, the shadow government, they may have decided that, but this one hasn't.
Well, okay, I'll take your word for that. So long as you're not part of the shadow government.
Well, you wouldn't know.
Anyway, those are my major concerns. So I think maybe we ought to go back to the drawing board and maybe get some questions answered. And I do apologize. I didn't have time to come to that zoning meeting. So otherwise I would have said all this stuff then, but.
Do you have a card that you want to give to the?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sir, how long have you owned those two properties, just for frame of reference?
I own this. Hold on a second. I own the little corner property for about 25 years. And the other property I own about, I think 7 or 8 years right now. So,
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right.
The only thing is on the water runoff, something needs to be done there because I don't feel that I should be a catchment for everybody's water coming off of that. So that needs to be addressed, I think. So
Okay.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Any questions or?
Thank you.
Alrighty, thanks.
Anybody else? All right, we'll close public hearing. You want to, he had a question about why is it being rezoned from GI to SGA?
Yeah, I think we looked at this. The use is allowed in GI. I think the question was from a city facility perspective. Most of Ames Electric facilities, most of our Corp Yard facilities, if not all of them, I believe are zoned SGA. When we bought this property over 20 years ago, it was already zoned general industrial, so there wasn't an imperative to change it at that time. So I think as they started to look at placing a building here, what we do as a practice by the city is that we follow the zoning if it's in place. If it's government zoning, the language in our code is that our intent is to follow the standards of the most applicable zone, which would be GI here. But it would grant the ability for some siting flexibility. Like, let's say in this case, I know at this point they're not planning to put it next to the railroad. There's some easements that are going to conflict with that, but originally they had thought about placing the building on the north property line. There would have been a 12-foot setback there, and SGA zoning would have allowed them to encroach into that setback next to the railroad. At this point, I know they're not going there. So how they would situate that building on the east side of the site, whether there would be any variations to zoning necessary or not, I don't know right now. That's been the practice of the city is to put it into government zoning when it may suit the uniqueness of house storage of whichever type of pieces of equipment, or in this case, it'd be storage of electric equipment is what's anticipated, a cold storage building. It could be done in GI. It's just that SGA is the customary practice of what we've been doing for our new construction or our new buildings. It does relieve as they mentioned, Bourne Avenue kind of ends at our property. It's a right of way, but it's unimproved at that point. SGA zoning doesn't have again, I don't know that we really want to extend a street to a railroad dead end, but SGA zoning doesn't have any street improvement requirements. Otherwise, it'd be treating the site the same basically as GI. And then the questions about stormwater are really site plan, not zoning, because if it was GI, the same comments about water flowage would still apply. So I'll definitely, if the electric moves forward, we'll relay those comments to the engineer and to Ames Electric about that. I don't know what the answer is in terms of how they would retain water or manage the flow of the water off the site.
So he made the comment about the fact that it's gravel, and is it correct that if this was going to be rezoned and they did development, that would have to be concrete if it was GI, if it was not a city? Or is it going to be expected that it will have to be paved as a development?
So if it was a blank slate, absolutely it would have to be paved. When we get into a condition like this, that's already a partially improved site that's non-conforming, we have a requirement that all parking and vehicle maneuvering areas are paved. Outdoor storage areas can be rock surface. So there's a interplay here of exactly what is this building, what's outdoor storage, what's existing conditions. So some element of improvement would be required adjacent to wherever the new building shows up. But I don't have a full extent of what that improvement is. It would not necessarily require, because it's already the travel way through the site, it wouldn't necessarily require a driveway to go all the way down to Bourne that's paved. Now, but that's yet to be determined.
So I guess that his point is my perception is that is the city held to the same standards and expectations if they were to improve this as if he owned the property and was developing it under a GI?
Yeah, to the extent that the city operations can be compliant with the zoning that would apply to anybody else, that is the perspective of the city. Now, you as the council, you have budget constraints and you work through that when you approve plans and specifications for a project that goes out to bid. That's part of your consideration of what does it take to do that facility. But from the starting point, let's look at how it complies with city zoning.
You just emphasize it's not legally required, but we've treated ourselves.
Right.
We build a swimming pool, we could have zero parking. we try to abide by the same zoning law and parking requirements.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just trying to tease out from the standpoint that he understands that we're not going to try and say, oh, we can just leave it all gravel.
Yeah, I think
or ignore what others would be, a private enterprise would be required to do. And so it's just,
the hard part is working through these previously developed sites, exactly what gets improved. Like there's latitude. So there's a lot of non-conforming sites as you go down East Lincoln Way, and you've seen buildings be added onto, other things added to property. You don't see that whole property come into compliance with zoning. We have a couple examples of cold storage buildings getting built out east a little bit further, and there's partial improvement, but it's not the whole site comes into compliance. So even if you're looking at, we had that same conversation with the property to the south when they've looked at different development options. What are the triggers for certain improvements? When are they required? What happens with different changes on the property?
so if council moves forward with considering the first passage of the ordinance, the point is that whether it's GI or SGA, and the city keeps the ownership, they're going to have the same standards they're going to have to comply with in terms of, and will comply with in terms of, except for maybe a minor on a setback. Is that correct?
So GI rigid conformance is required. The city can't just not follow GI. SGA gives the latitude to the council to consider that scope of the project and say it's addressing the requirements to the extent practicable. Those aren't the words, but essentially within the scope of the project and within the expectations of the city. So GI has mandatory compliance. SGA, as the goal is to be as consistent with the GI zoning as practicable.
Just a couple of follow-up questions on the sewer and the trash. I'm not as concerned about the trash that's blowing out. That's been that way for as long as the resource recovery plan has been there. And hopefully as we do something differently with that, that may have an impact on the negative externalities of living next to the resource recovery plan. I'm hoping so. I'm more interested in the storm sewers. And I'm generally aware that we have pockets of older parts of our industrial areas of the community that don't have the same levels of infrastructure, but I'm caught a little bit unaware of just how the storm sewer system is structured in these different parts of the community. Is there a map that would be available to provide council just to give us a sense of that? That would be helpful, I think, just to see where there may be some gaps in the storm sewer system.
You need more than just a map. You need an analysis. I mean, a report by council on how we handle the storm sewer in this particular area.
Yeah. So I mean, I would like to see just sort of a map. I've never seen a map that shows the storm sewers. That would be interesting. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I think that would be helpful for council. But then specifically, I mean, this is way beyond our pay grade to think through surface water issues on this property. But I'm interested in understanding, are there some solutions that we should be thinking about as we redevelop this property?
Well, that comes with the site plan, right? So we're just not there yet. But
part of what we do is we signal to staff the kinds of concerns that we'll have down the road. So I'm signaling.
Any other questions? All right, so on the agenda is the first passage of the ordinance. No, I'm sorry, I'm gonna close it, but you can certainly talk to Kelly afterwards. Okay, I'm gonna make one exception. You have 1 minute. You can come up here and make a comment, but this is not ordinary, and I'm just trying to accept your.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm sorry.
I
Go
didn't
ahead.
know this was going to be an issue.
Go ahead.
And I don't mean to downgrade Kelly or anything, but
Would you please stay by the mic?
okay.
Thank you.
The paving to the city property the paving is not continuous to the city property from Bourne. The paving.
Oh, it stops.
No, it's gravel from the city property down to Bourne.
Right.
So on the west
Just
side,
a correction.
the west side of your property.
On the west
gravel.
side of my property, yes.
Thank you.
That's all gravel.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, council, is there a motion on the first passage of the ordinance?
I'll go ahead and move approval alternative one, first reading as indicated in the staff report. GI to SGA.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
This has been really interesting. You never know when sometimes you see a staff report, what will come in as we discuss it. And we want to get this right. And so if there are other suggestions, I mean, I'd say to the people, thanks for coming tonight. And if there are other suggestions to help us get this right, please let us know.
I would just say that it's just, I guess some very valid points were made in terms of the, and Steve, you mentioned that we're going to hold ourselves to the same standards as if these gentlemen bought it and they had to develop it as well too. So I look forward to that happening, not just because SGA all of a sudden gives them the ability to just leave it the way it is essentially and throw a building on it. That's correct?
Yeah.
All right. Roll call.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Kelly, you have this next item also on the tax amendment. Okay. Gentlemen, if you want to talk to Kelly afterwards, I think he's got one or two items you on.
Two.
So then he'll be available to talk if you want to talk to him after that. All right. Item number 22, hearing on zoning text amendment for parking standards, retail sales, and service general. Any questions for Kelly on this one? I'll open the public hearing on this zoning text amendment to amend the retail sales and service general to 2 spaces per 1,000 square feet. Is there anyone who wants to address council? Seeing and hearing none, close public, what's that? Close public hearing and go ahead, India.
Sorry. I did want to ask, there was one an individual that was part of that zoning hearing who did not vote for it. So I'm just curious what their comment was.
Yeah, they were just concerned. I don't mean to say just their concern was that by requiring less parking, you had the potential for demand to exceed supply, which could infiltrate into neighborhoods.
Okay.
So in his mind, the reduction created that, it increased the potential for that to happen.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, entertain motion on first passage of the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 All right, item number 23, zoning agreement for 4098 East 13th Street.
Yeah, so this is third reading is next on the agenda. So at the first reading, we presented a master plan to you. We talked about some adjustments that were described in that report, and they need to be finalized with the zoning agreement. So the developer has followed through and signed the agreement. It's actually consistent with the initial proposal that you saw. So there aren't any significant changes from what you saw with first reading. So we're recommending approval of the agreement, and then you would do third reading of the ordinance following that.
Okay. Questions? All right, entertain motion and resolution approving the zoning agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you. And entertain motion on third reading and adoption of ordinance number 4505 on rezoning with master plan for 4098 East 13th Street.
Move on third.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 All right. We'll move on to disposition of communications to council. We have quite a few this evening. One, we have a letter from Mr. Platt regarding a safety concern regarding removal of stop sign. Is there an interest to refer this to staff for a memo?
Move we refer it to staff for a memo.
Second.
Thank you. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? All right. Item number 2 is just was for council's information. I sent a letter to Boone County supervisors regarding the construction and demolition waste, and they are responding. So item number 3, letter from Ames Main Street regarding their interest in entering into or soliciting proposals for a master plan, or for some planning, I should say, planning for the downtown area. Some cost sharing. Steve?
So I would suggest it's a two-part kind of issue for the council. First, I think there has to be an indication whether you're willing to participate in the financing of this visioning for downtown. If you're not, you would not move this on. If you are, then I would suggest we ask them to provide a little more information when it comes back to you, so we don't have to do it twice. One would be, what would the scope of the services be, the expectation, what would the cost be? It's tough for you to say, I'll pay 50% of a $1 million project or a $20,000 project. So if you're willing to participate, that's a good indication. You know, it's a positive indication, but we need more information before we can bring it back to the council, which I think they can provide, because they'll have a scope of service, what they're trying to accomplish with the consultant, and an estimated cost. And at that time, you can make the commitment if you'd like.
So if we move to put it on a future agenda, then presumably when you bring it back, some of that information.
We'll have that I won't bring it back till we have that information.
Okay.
That's okay. Then you'll be in a position to
Okay.
approve it, right?
I would move that we place this on a future agenda.
Second.
With the additional information.
Yeah.
So you can make a decision.
Okay. Any
Cost and scope.
Any other comments? All right. Those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Motion carried. Next email from Richard Gladden, Ascension Lutheran Church, regarding installation of traffic light at Hyde Avenue and Bloomington Road.
I move that we place this, or we ask for staff for a memo on this one.
Right.
Okay.
Good background on it.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Memo from Kelly regarding downtown public meeting input, feedback expected by August 22nd.
No
Okay.
actions.
I think just more or less for your information. Letter from Anna McCracken, Ames writer, collective request for amendment to art capital grant.
You are referred as the staff, Ryan O'Reilly.
Is there interest in the memo? Okay. Here.
I apologize, maybe I didn't give this enough attention. So they're wanting to change the grant proposal or grant process.
To use it for something else. So that's what Brian will have to write it back to you and see if it qualifies.
So we refer that to staff.
Yeah, for a memo.
For a memo.
So I move that we refer this to a memo from staff.
Second.
Discussion? Those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. All right, there's an email from Devon Lewis, Dennis and Carol Barrick, Helen Jensen, Robert Ewald, regarding Chautauqua Park and Brookridge Edition application for National Register of Historic Places.
Again, this is kind of a two-parter. I think they want to meet with you and talk about this. Kelly, what would you suggest that they haven't decided finally what they're going to do? We're waiting till it's finalized and then come back to us. Is that the correct way to describe it?
I think the neighbors, right? We did a survey last year, so some of the neighbors are trying to figure out if there's support in their neighborhood. So that's what that letter is trying to alert you to let you know they're working on that. They also requested you put on an agenda to look at a funding request. I think that's a little premature, probably. I think they have some more work to do on neighborhood support, and they could probably give you an update later this summer or early this fall about where they stand, and then think about how that fits into your budget, the planning for the process, what all goes into that.
So maybe premature to, again, commit to funding and
I think it's a little premature to put on an agenda.
agenda.
To
Yeah.
discuss
We're not sure that the neighbors are even going to support it.
Right.
or exactly what it would take to do that.
So,
Can Kelly write them back? And
yeah, I would just ask you, could you just respond back to them, or you copy on this email? I don't think you were. I can forward it to you.
Well, you could direct Kelly to respond back with, what would you say?
I think logically, when they have completed their outreach, they should give another update to council, and then you can decide how to move forward from there.
Move that we ask Kelly to write a letter to that effect.
Second.
Okay. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Wait,
All right. Next is a memo from.
excuse me. Wait for 9. We'll do the first one.
All right, we'll do number 9, then we'll go to 8.
Oh, okay.
Memo from Kelly
Save
regarding,
my evening, yep.
There you go.
we're going to save you 1 item.
He knows.
Request for waiver to subdivide land in Story County within Ames urban fringe.
This is the memo we asked for. Now you've got to decide what you want to do the next step. Kelly's got some feelings about it, but
So Kelly, I'm concerned we have these requests that we act in a consistent and predictable manner. So if we were to do that, we haven't had a ton of these. What have we done in the past with similar requests?
You probably have not exactly had this type of request. You've had some other divisions in natural area where you've agreed to them if they're non-buildable lots. In this case, you're taking a house site and splitting it into a private open space and retaining a house. It's a little different than some other ones. But one thing that's a little different is you just recently updated Ames Plan 2040 with the natural area. The fringe plan no longer applies. So we were using the old fringe plan as guidance. Now we have a little bit different take on the policy there. That's where I highlighted that private open space is discouraged as a reason for a subdivision. It's not that it's not possible, but if you want to go down that route, you have to put it on an agenda to discuss the merits of moving forward.
You know, I looked just out of curiosity on this request. I just went on Beacon, and the 1 acre, they call it a 1 acre, but the one actually when you trace it around, it's only 6/10 of an acre. And so I don't know how far they have to go south to get to an acre, but what would happen if 1 acre would end up being that became a lot that was not contiguous with the property for the current people? In other words, it was like a totally internal lot.
The county would require you to have frontage, I believe, on a right of way or an access. So I think whatever we do, they still would have to meet county platting requirements. Now, I'm not going to tell you tonight that I know exactly what those are. So again, if you want to look at that in greater detail, I think it has to go on an agenda.
Well, what's interesting is that 5517, according to this map, actually goes across Aerosmith Trail.
Right.
And so if you subdivide it, it's actually not going to have any frontage whatsoever because it would have to have an easement across 5517 to get to that property. It's a very strange situation the way it's laid out.
So the county has different access requirements than we do. We view things as roads for frontage.
Okay.
They have a little different leeway about easements equaling frontage in some cases, but not all. So that's why I can't quite comment on exactly how it meets county code.
Okay. All right. Any further questions for Kelly?
I think unless we have a really strong opinion to dispose of a request like this, I think we should put it on an agenda to give the people an opportunity to present their thoughts. And by doing that, by putting it on an agenda, I'm not committing to this at all. I think people should have the opportunity to make their pitch. So I move that we put this on a future agenda.
Second.
Okay. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carried.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Kelly. And last one is memo from Chief Huff regarding urination and defecation in public, the ordinance.
So this is the memo. The only question is, do you want to direct the city attorney to make those small changes in the ordinance and come back to you?
So it would just come back to us in an ordinance, right?
Unless you want to have an interim meeting to have the chief come here and explain why he wants it.
I would move that we ask the city attorney to come back with the proposed changes in an ordinance.
Second.
Okay. Those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Motion carried. All right. Council comments. Tim, we'll start with you tonight.
A couple of business-oriented things. I am the council appointee on the watersheds, and I have found my role to be very non-productive on behalf of the city because of the technical nature of these discussions. And I would propose that for this point going forward, that a city staff person that has a technical background be the city's liaison and leave us to deal with policy issues rather than getting mired in the technical side. So, Steve, should I make a motion? I don't
Yes,
know
then
what
we'll
the-
come back with you because you have to designate someone. I talked to Linda Merkin. It does not have to be a council person. So we can designate a city staff person to be the city's representative if you'd like. I'd bring it back so you can take under consent, but we'll have a name of a public works person probably to do that if the council would like.
I would second that.
All right,
So there's my motion and a second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
And so I indicated in an email to council, there's been, the staff provided us a memo with respect to a sidewalk maintenance policy. I am comfortable delaying that till next week to making the motion because I just presented that to you just saw that a day or two ago. But Steve, do you have any preference on timing of this? It seems like it's relevant to our discussion of the property maintenance. So I could wait on this for a week, or I could make the motion to have staff come back to us with a memo on basically what you saw in that staff's email.
You want a memo or you, I think we're realizing that maybe we need official action by the city council on a policy. Policy is, been articulated, what we followed in the past, but I don't know if it's ever been approved technically by the council. So I think you don't want a memo. Do you want us to come back with a policy? In other words, putting in how we operational now and for you to consider, or?
I think
I
that'd be
think
helpful.
Justin already gave I think I gave a copy to all of you of what our procedure is right now. Whether it's formally been adopted or updated, I don't know. And there's some policy implications whether you want to support what we're doing now or change it. I do think we don't think there's urgency to it, but you may think so because most of the sidewalk inspections are over with now and they won't take place for a while. But I don't know how urgent you want to be on that. Bring it forward. Was that what you're looking for? Maybe a discussion and approval of a formal policy on sidewalk?
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful for council to see what that would look like. So I guess I would, with the council's flexibility on this, I would ask staff to begin working on a formal policy for us to consider
And placed on a future agenda.
and place on a future
If you
agenda.
give us some time on this, that'd be helpful. Well, don't give me a time.
I'm deferential because there's not a timing issue.
Right, I don't think
perhaps,
there's a
then.
timing issue per se.
Okay. Those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, was there a second?
No.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
You?
Yeah.
All right. Those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Motion carried.
And finally, just a fun thing. I mentioned in a couple meetings ago just how proud I am of the Ames Public Library's efforts on their summer enrichment and the feeding program, the lunch program. I went over today to help with the setup and with the meals and just to see firsthand the efforts our library staff is doing. Our community should be very proud of the efforts that we're taking to help with reducing summer slide on the reading skills and getting kids in the library. A lot of those kids had very large bags of books that they were taking home. And the meals were prepared in coordination with the public schools. They were very healthy meals. And, how many of those kids wouldn't have that meal today if it wasn't for what we're doing? And so I don't know that we talk about these kind of things as much, but it was a moment of great pride of what we as a community are valuing. So just wanted to note that tonight. Thanks.
Nothing. Thanks.
Amber?
Nothing for me.
Nothing tonight.
Nothing for me. Thanks.
All right. All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move adjourn.
Second.
All right. Those in favor say aye.
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 All right.